Hello, everybody. As you may know, I recently released a new book about the game development in the Godot Engine, and one of the topics I cover in that book is connecting a game to the Steam API. If you're planning to release your game on Steam, this functionality will be very useful, as it allows you, for example, to save game progress to Steam Cloud or enable various achievements. So let's take a look at how we can achieve this in Godot 4. And this time as well, I started by creating a new project, which we can see right here. I'm using Godot 4.5, which was recently released as a stable version. However, everything I'll demonstrate in this video also works with the previous version 4.4. So Godot doesn't have a built-in support for the Steam API, so we'll use an add-on. Let's switch to Asset Lib and search for the keyword Steam. Okay, as we can see, several results came up, but the one we are most interested in is the first one. Godot Steam is essentially the standard for using the Steam API in Godot projects, and I've had only the best experience with this add-on. Judging by the name Godot Steam GD extension 4.4, it might seem that for Godot 4.5 we'd need a newer version, but if we click on it, we can see in the detailed description that the add-on works with Godot 4.4 and newer, so everything is fine. I assume that in a 4.5 version of the add-on, will be released soon, and we'll use that when it's available. So we can click download and watch as Godot fetches all the necessary files. Once this process finishes, a configuration dialog pops up where we can verify that the add-on does not conflict with other files in our project. And it shouldn't, since Godot installed everything into a new add-ons folder. So let's click install, and shortly after, we'll get a confirmation dialog of success. Very well. Let's expand output. Seems to be something red here. As we can see, Godot printed some errors in the console. I think they are caused by something that changed between Godot 4.4 and 4.5. But I also think we can ignore them, since I've already checked that all the required functionality works. I expect these errors will disappear once the Godot Steam add-on is updated to version 4.5. So now we can expand the newly created add-ons folder and confirm that everything was installed correctly. Yeah, definitely looks like that. So what's next? This isn't a plugin, so we don't need to activate it in the project settings, and we can immediately work with the Steam class, which is the entry point for all the necessary functions. And because we'll want to use the Steam API in various parts of our game project, I'll create an autoload script and call it Steam Manager. So let's do it here, right-clicking, create new folder, call it autoload, and right-clicking the folder, create new script, and as I said, we'll call it Steam Manager. All right, now we have to open project settings and switch to globals, autoload, and find this new script. It should be here in autoload. And Godot automatically assigned a node name Steam Manager, which is cool. Clicking add, and now we have it as the class name, which is accessible from anywhere. Very well. So how we implement the script? Let's open it first. Here it is. We'll need the app ID of our game on Steam, which we'll get once we register the game in our Steamworks dashboard. This is the dashboard. It's on the URL partner.steamgames.com/dashboard. And as we can see, it requires paying a Steam fee of $100 to create a new project, which of course I won't be doing in this tutorial. Fortunately, developers have a solution in the form of a pseudo project called Space War, which we can use as a sandbox to test the Steam API. So I'll switch back to Godot and let's do it here. I will add a constant app ID, const app ID with the value 480, which is the ID of the mentioned Space War project. In addition to that, let's define variables to store the information we get after successfully connecting to the Steam API. War is ready, is false, war is online, is yeah, definitely false. Now var is owned, again still false, and var Steam ID, which will be integer, it's the ID of the connected user, and var Steam username, which is a string, and the name of the authorized user. Before we jump into further coding, I should mention that Godot allows for some basic configuration in project settings. Back to general and scrolling down, here is the Steam category, which was created by the addon. So we can enter app ID, initialize on startup, and embed callbacks. However, I prefer full control through code, so instead we'll write the following script. Func ready, and here we will just call the function init Steam, which we are about to code right now. Func init Steam. And now, if I will write the code, then I'll explain it as singleton Steam, and app ID is a positive number, then response, which will be a dictionary, and now our first Steam API call. Steam init x, app ID, and true embed callbacks. Okay, and we will print the result. Init response. Okay, and we expect the status field of this dictionary to be 0, and if it's not, if it's greater than 0, it means that there was some kind of error, and we want to inform the user about that. Print, let's say, for instance, failed to initialize Steam shutting down, and the error message. And the parameter init response again. Okay. In fact, we should be shutting down the game like this get tree and quit. But if we don't want to do that and we want the game to be executable even without the Steam, let's just comment it out for the time being. And in this case, is ready is false. And let's return. Nothing more to do here because the Steam doesn't work. Okay, so let's go through it once more. Because we call because we call the function initSteam from the ready function, this one, it means that Godot will run it automatically at the game startup when all autoload scripts are initialized. So first, it checks whether the Steam class exists and whether the app ID is set. If so, it connects to Steam using the Steam initX function. The first parameter is our app ID, and the second one, embed callbacks, means that the add-on will automatically process Steam events in response to different functionality. And the result of this call returns as dictionary in its response. It's a dictionary of various information which we print to the console right here. If an error occurs, we log it to the console and shut down Steam usage. And as I said, I commented out the line get_quit because it would exit the game if Steam failed to initialize. If you prefer the game to close in that case, simply uncomment it. Very well. So I think we can run and then quit the game and we'll check the console. But before we do that, we'll need at least one scene that would be executed on the game startup. And I guess we will need the scene anyway. So let's create it right now. In the root folder, create new scene, and it can be user interface. Let's call it main. Okay. Great, nothing else is necessary at this moment, so let's execute the application and select the current scene, and let's exit the game. And we can already see that there are some errors in the console because the Steam client isn't running, which is required for working with the Steam API. So let's start Steam. I think I have it here, so starting up. I assume you have it installed and you are logged in with your account. And after it initializes, we will start the game again and we should see everything is fine in the console. So yeah, this is okay. Let's close. Close. It should be still running. Let's start it again. Okay, exit, and we can see status 0. Everything is fine. No errors here. Very well, we can now extend the remaining code of the initSteam function at its end to get further information about the init result. Okay, so I guess it would be here. It's online. We take from Steam logged on. Show more of this window. Is owned, is Steam, is subscribed. Okay. Steam ID is Steam, get Steam ID. And finally, Steam username would be taken from Steam call, get personal name. Okay, and I think we can just print that to the console. Let's do it quickly. Is Steam online %s for the string, and the parameter is online. Notice that if I use this construct, we don't need to cast the boolean to string, it would be done automatically. And let's just copy paste 4 times, and here we have is game owned, is owned, Steam ID, and Steam username. This is mostly for the debugging process. I suppose that in the full game, we won't need to print everything, all this information to the console, so we'll simply comment it out. And now we can finally set the isReady variable, and it is true if Steam is online and the user owns our game. Great. Very well. And in case the Steam is not installed or app ID is 0, we'll do this. Let's simply set Steam ID to 0 and is ready would be false. False. And finally, let's print a simple line. Steam is not supported. Great. That's all. Let's start the game again and exit. And we can see right here that the ID and username of the currently logged in Steam user is printed. That's me, of course. And the last step of the basic setup, let's add the process function. So again, func process, and if is ready, because if it's not, there is no reason to call the Steam API at all. Steam run callbacks. Okay, yeah, sure. Delta is not used. Let's add the underscore. So if Steam is correctly initialized, this function will react to events sent from Steam. Well, due to the previous embed callback settings, this parameter, it's probably not necessary, but we can keep this function in the code as a safeguard. So our game now supports working with the Steam API. Let's make use of that. First, we'll look at synchronizing files with Steam Cloud, which we need if we want to share game progress between different installations of the Steam client. So let's add functions for uploading a file to Steam Cloud and downloading a file to our local environment. Both functions work with byte buffers, so we'll use Godot's corresponding file handling functions. And I'll put the new functions to the end of the script. Func, the first one would be called copy file to Steam with parameters local file name, which is a string, and Steam file name, which is a string as well. Okay, all these functions should be called only if the is ready is true. So let's add this condition. All right, and now Steam begin file write batch. This is probably not absolutely necessary if you are uploading only one file, but I think maybe it's a good habit to use it, because when we decide to upload, for example, 20 files at the same time, it could be pretty useful. So if file access, now let's check that the local file is present, file exists, local file name, because if it's not, there is nothing to upload, of course. Let's get its data as the byte stream or byte array. Var data is file access, get file as bytes, and from the local file name. Yes. Okay. And now let's send this data to Steam. And the function fileWrite returns a boolean, true or false, as a result of this operation. So let's check what happens if the operation was successful. FileWrite, yeah, this is the one. FileWrite, Steam file name is the first parameter, now the data, and finally the size of this array. So size. So if it's true, in that case, we can inform the user or us that everything was correct. File %us saved to the Steam Cloud. %Steam file name. Okay. And if it was false, then something went wrong. Let's write the corresponding message. Unable to write Steam file, this one. Okay, and again the parameter is Steam file name. Cool. And of course, if the file does not exist, the local file I mean, let's inform about that as well. Unable to find local file %s local file name. All right, that's everything. And of course, we started a batch, we need to end it. And file write batch. Great, this is the first function. Now the second one, which works in the opposite direction. Func copy file from Steam. And again, Steam file name is a string and local file name string. And just like before, only if is ready. Very well. Now we would like to know if the file actually exists at the Steam cloud. But for that, it would be useful to have another function. So let's write it first. Right here. Func. Sorry, func file exists with Steam file name as the string parameter, and return is ready, of course, and Steam file exists, Steam file name. Great. This is a simple function, and now we can use it here. If file exists, Steam file name, then we can fetch it. So first we need to know the file size. Var file size is Steam get file size. Where is it? Here. Get file size of our Steam file name. And I think we should add some space here. Okay. And let's fetch the file. Is Steam file read, this one, file read Steam file name of the file size. I'm not sure why it is necessary to do it this way, but perhaps that's how the Steam API works internally. And now we got some result, which is a dictionary again, and if a result and its field called ret is true, in that case we can get the file from the result buffer. Var data is result.buf var file, and then store it locally. So file access open for writing. So local file name and with the parameter file access write. Okay, file is opened. Now we need to store something. So file store buffer data. And finally, let's close it. Great. But if the result was not without errors, let's inform print unable to read Steam file %s and Steam file name. Okay, and if the file didn't exist, else let's print another message. Unable to read. No, unable to find local file %s %. No. Sorry, we were checking for the Steam file, not local file. There is no local file yet. Okay. Sorry about that. Very well. And this is it. And finally, to complete this set of API calls, we can add one more function that would be used for deleting a file from the cloud. So func delete file from Steam. Steam file name is a string, and if is ready and the file exists on Steam, in that case, let's delete it. So Steam file delete Steam file name. Okay, and this is it. So we are ready for file transfer back and forth. To test this easily, we already created a scene. So let's add 2 buttons to it, which will be used for save and load. So I'm right-clicking the root node, add child node button, and let's call it save button. Okay, save to the Steam cloud. Oh, what did I write? Cloud, of course. And let's just increase the font size a little bit. Yeah, this should be okay. Maybe it's too much, 24. All right, and I will duplicate and rename this one to load button. Load from the Steam cloud, and let's move it a little bit to the right. Where is the layout here? Transform 400. Yeah, okay, why not? Very well. And of course, now we need to attach a script. So we would have something to put the callback functions into. Clicking here, main GD. Script is created for the root node, and now we can select the save button, click to node signals, and double-click pressed and connect. This is the first function, and let's do the same for the load button. Okay, we have both callbacks here, and let's implement that. And inside them, we will call our Steam Manager class. So first we need to create a file that would be sent to Steam. Let's create a simple text file. Var file name would be, let's call it test file txt. Now we need a folder to put it into, and I think that the user directory is the best way to do that. File path is user : / and of course we need the full path, so it would be plus file name. All right, let's create a file. Var file is file access open with our file path and file access write. We are writing a new file or writing the existing one, and let's store a simple string. File store string. This is a test. Okay, and close it. File close. And now let's finally send it to Steam. Steam Manager. Copy file to Steam with our file path, which is the local file name, and let's use just a file name as the Steam file name. So it would be called test file txt on Steam. Okay. And likewise, we need to implement the load function. So again, I think we can copy and paste these two lines. All right. And now, if Steam Manager file exists, file name, because if there is no file in the Steam Cloud, there is nothing to fetch and store locally. So if it is there, let's do it. Steam Manager, copy file from Steam with our file name. This is the Steam file name, and file path. This is the local file name. Very well. So let's run the scene and click save. Running the scene. Here it is. Save to Steam Cloud and exit. And we can see in the console that the file test file txt saved to the Steam Cloud. There were no errors. Very well. And now let's test the opposite process. But first, let's open the user data folder where we should see our file and delete it. Now, if I start the game, start the scene and click load, exit, and take a look at this folder, we can see the files back. It was successfully fetched from Steam, and if I open it, we should see our text. This is a test. Great, it works. And what about the achievements? This will be even simpler, since we don't need to transfer any data. We'll just call the Steam API with the correct parameter, which we'll do in one more function added to the Steam Manager GD script. So let's switch to the script and add this function. Func set achievement with the parameter achievement ID, and it's a string again. If is ready and achievement ID is not null, it has some string in it. Now let's do this. Var result is Steam set achievement of our achievement ID. And now again, it returns true or false. So if result is true, let's finish the process by storing the stats. Steam store stats. Okay. And we can inform in the console as well. Print Steam achievement %s set. Okay, and the parameter achievement ID. And if it wasn't correct, let's inform about the failure. Not set. And yes, that's all. Nothing else is needed. And now let's create another button in our scene. I will copy this one and call it achievement button. Let's put something like set achievement and move it somewhere right here. And again, we need a callback function. So we'll get rid of this one and double click again, and the new function was created here. And this will be very simple, just one line. Steam Manager set achievement, and I will use this string, win one game. So the name win one game corresponds to an actual achievement in Space War game, which I took from the Steam API documentation. So let's run the scene and press the button and exit the scene. We can see in the console that achievement was actually set. There are no errors. Actually, when I tested it the first time, I got a notification in the bottom right corner, the typical Steam achievement pop-up, which confirmed that everything was working. The second time it won't appear anymore, but at least we can see in the console that the Steam API call returned no errors. Okay, and that's it. We've covered the most basic Steam API functionality and how to use it with our Godot game. Thank you very much for watching. The Steam API offers many more features, such as leaderboards, networking for multiplayer, and so on, but that's beyond the scope of this tutorial. And of course, for your own game, you'll need to set up real achievements in Steamworks and configure Steam Cloud properly. But I cover all of that in the book you can see on screen right now. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and saw that using the Steam API in Godot isn't difficult at all. So take care, good luck with your projects, and I'll see you in the next video.